Hello everyone, I have another devlog for you. This one is kind of different because this is one of our open source projects that we're just kind of starting called the ResoniteLink. ResoniteLink, this is a public repo, this is already published and some people already found it. You can go to this right now, but I'm just gonna quickly tell you what it is and give you like an example of how this can be used. ResoniteLink is essentially a protocol for working with the Resonite data model with external applications. It uses WebSocket and it uses JSON types, and everything in Resonite is essentially deconstructed into JSON types, which makes it so it's interoperable with lots of languages because both WebSocket and both JSON are very widely supported. The goal of this project is to be sort of a building block for both ours and community projects. One of the things we'll be using it as basis for is the Unity SDK, but you can, integrate with any game engine you want. You could also make tools, for procedurally generating worlds. You could make scripts, like, if you're running an event, you can interact with the data model from external programs, integrated with whatever things you want. Similar, like, you can monitor the state. One of the things, and I'll be showing you an example, is you can integrate it with Twitch chat. And you can just do lots of different things. Like, for example, you can create integration where tools, like for example 3D scanning software, could send its data into Resonite for visualization. And it doesn't have to worry about its own mechanisms for collaboration. It doesn't have to worry about mechanisms for interaction with VR and other stuff. It just sends the data it cares about. There's a bunch of examples here, and we're going to be going through those. And some other information. I do recommend reading this. It's also currently in beta stage, meaning this might still change. Some of the models, some of the way the library structured is can be modified. We're still essentially opening it for breaking changes until we get some feedback. Once we get some feedback, and feel things are gonna okay, we'll remove this label and be okay, now it's probably not gonna change, very unlikely to change drastically, and we're just gonna keep adding more functionality and improving it. So let's get started. I'm gonna run Resonite, so I'm just gonna start my latest build. This is not, as of this video, this is not released yet, these versions of Resonite that support the ResoniteLink. But it will be soon. But if you're watching this and we haven't put this into the update notes, you won't be able to actually use this site. But once this is released, which should be soon, it should be you should be able to just do this. So I'm gonna open up a new world. I'm just gonna wait for things to load. I'm gonna create a new world. There we go. So I have a world. By default, you can't connect with ResoniteLink to any world. It's not on by default. You also need to be a host, but if you're a host of a world, I can go to session. This is in the graphical client, and there's new enable ResoniteLink. So if I click this starts ResoniteLink, and now it's running on this port. This is WebSocket connection. So what I'll do is I'll open Postman. Actually, hold on, I need to disable game capture. There we go. So you can see this. So this is Postman, which lets me debug the WebSocket stuff, and I'm just gonna connect to localhost, and the port for this one is 53729. And I'm gonna connect. And I'm connected. So I'm also open Inspector in-game, so we can kind of see things. There we go, and I have a Postman here, and actually let me, I will make this smaller. Hopefully this is still readable on the stream. I'm just gonna, there we go. And I will take this and move this here, there we go. And let's look at the samples. So the simplest thing you can do is you can query slot data. And to do that, we can send this message, get slot. there's like a command. I'm gonna also switch this to JSON so it's formatted properly. You have the type of the message, which is get slot. Then you have the slot ID, which we're doing the root slot. But this can be ID that you can get of the children, but the root slot has special ID that's always root. You can also include component data, but we're not going to include it for this one. And can depth, we only want to fetch this slot. And all the children are just going to be included as references, but not going to include all of their data. So let's send this message to Resonite, and we got a response. And the response is slot data. We have their depth for reference, and then we have the actual data. So we have the root slot here. You can see the name is root. Each of the elements we get also has its own ID. So even the fields have ID. And then we have components. You see, like there's a static lookup provider. There's going to be a lot of components. But you see, it's reference only, so we're not including their data. But we get their ID, which means, like, if we want to fetch their data, we can use the ID to fetch that. And also, if I scroll even lower, there's already like a fair amount of data. If I scroll a bit lower, then we have, we should have the children. Actually, this is the children, I think. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Yeah, these are like the children. There's references, position, rotation, scale, name. There, oh, that's actually me, user. So you get like, all the data, and you get the IDs of the children. So for example, I wanted to fetch, what's in me. I can put this here. I sent this, and then I get a response on, what did I do? Oh, I'm a dummy, hold on. I grabbed the wrong ID. You have to make sure you want the ID of the actual thing. So this is, I wish this was a bigger, let's see. Precision slot. I grabbed the ID of the field instead of the slot, so it told me it doesn't exist. Temp slot, that's, I don't know if I'll be able to find the one I wanted. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's me. Just gonna scroll that up a little. Got the scale, rotation, parent. So these are the fields. I just need to find the ID itself. There we go. There we go. That's the ID of the property. So I'm gonna send this, and then I got information on my slot. So this is like a way to query data. You can also have it include a component data. That's gonna make the response bigger. You can also like include depth. So like if you do -1, that's gonna fetch everything. So like if I do like a root, and I send this, that literally gives me like the entire scene. Oh no, it doesn't like that. There's still some bugs as well. I'll have to look into this one. No fetching the entirety of the thing. But I could like, let's see if this works, for example, if I fetch, yeah, that worked. So this fetched like, too deep, meaning all the children will also have their children, and then their children will also have their children, and then everything else is just going to be a reference. But let's move on. Let's add a slot. So you can also modify the data model. So I'm just going to copy this message, so I don't have to write it from scratch. Ooh, and there's an error already. I'll have to fix that up. And there's an error here. And value, where's this? There's an error here. I should probably test the things out a bit more, but it should be. I'm gonna fix this up after this video. So we have this message, it adds a new slot, and then the data is actually just the definition of the slot, and you can optionally include, what you want. Everything else will be left as default. I can also provide my own ID because I'm allocating a new thing, and the Resonite is going to remember that for the session. It's not persistent, but it will remember that for the session. So I'm adding a new slot. The parent is going to be root, and then we've got the name, and the name is hello from my SDK. We can use it like SDK, and we also initialize the position. So let's send this, and you see it appeared here. And you see like, you know, there's the position and like, you know, it worked. So we added a new slot. And this has been done, you know, through WebSocket. Like you can literally be running this in a web browser. With this, we can move to the next one. Let's say we want to update the scale. So I'm gonna take this message. We've got update slot. We provide the same ID we generated, and we just say scale. We want it to be this value. We're gonna send this over, and you see the scale has updated. So we can pretty much update like, you know, any field. We can also attach components. Here's an example. So it's add component. We give it like, you know, which slot we want to attach. We can also give it our own ID, so it's easier to update. Then we specify the component type. This is the same thing you would type into, you know, the component selector when specifying types. And we also set a scalable member. We set it to true. So let's send this. And we have a component here, and we can see scalable is set to true. So it just kind of works. And then here we have another example. We can update component. We specify the same ID. And let's say we want to set the scalable to false. So we're just going to send this, and scalable has been unchecked. So you can, you know, modify any type. If I wanted to do receivable, it can be like receivable, send this, and now that's false. So you can pretty much like, you know, modify the numbers. You can also specify multiple of them, not just one. Anything else is left as is, but this pretty much gives you access to the data model. And we can also finally just remove the slot. So it can be like, you know, we don't want it anymore. So let's send this over. We have the ID, send, and it's gone. So there's a few more things to it, but hopefully this kind of gives you an idea what it can do through WebSocket. And the cool thing is like, you know, it can build any library you want. You know, like in any language, because these are like pretty accessible things. There's another example, like if you want to look through the code base, I'm actually gonna disconnect. And if you look at the repository, ResoniteLink, there's the library itself, ResoniteLink, but there's also ResoniteLink REPL. REPL, it's like a read every wait print loop. And this is essentially a program that like that gives you sort of like command line interface for this one, to sort of interface with the world. And it's good like example to look, you know, how you can use this library if you're working with C#, to mess with things. And it's kind of interesting way to like edit the world itself. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna launch this, start this REPL. You can kind of, you know, take this apart. You can look how it like, you know, works, how it like actually does things. I'm gonna switch back here. Let me check. This was port 53729. So I'm gonna connect. Now I'm connected. I'm actually gonna maximize this. Let me add that thing here. I'm gonna add a sphere so we have like something to look at. So if let me just put this into view. There we go. And I'm gonna switch back to my REPL. So this is using the ResoniteLink, you know, it's actually sending the WebSocket messages that I just showed you earlier, but it's sending them, you know, it's kind of hidden and it's kind of presenting with a command line interface. So I currently have the root slot selected, so I can be list children, so I can look what's in the scene. Next there's a bunch of stuff, and there's my sphere, so I can be select child 11, and now I have the sphere selected, and can be list children. It has no children. List components, and there's a bunch of components. There's the sphere mesh. Let's select the first one, the sphere mesh. Select component 0, and you see like I can have all the stuff on it. There's, for example, rings, and I can actually set, you know, values. So I can, for example, be like let's set let's change to number of rings. So set rings, and I need to provide the value of it. So actually this is just a simple one. So set the rings, let's do 3. There we go, and it's been set. Set the rings, let's see, is there there's not a complex value. Let's select something different then. So clear component. I'm gonna list the components again. Let's see what else we have there. do we have the material? The material is not there. I think it's the one that's on the root. So let's select parent. Select parent. So we have the root slot, list components. There we go, and there's a bunch of materials. There's PBS metallic. I think that's the one that's used by this shared one. So I'm gonna select component 38. There we go, there's a bunch of stuff. And let's change the albedo color. So you can also see, like, you know, this kind of shows you the JSON of it. And this is, the REPL is made very simple. So, like, when you assign these, you essentially just set the JSON of the value. It doesn't have, like, any fancier parsing, just to kind of keep it simple. But if you want to contribute, feel free to contribute, like, you know, nicer interface for this as well. But I'm gonna set albedo color, and I'm gonna set, let's make it yellow. So I'm gonna do red 1, green is gonna be 0.5, blue is gonna be 0, and alpha is gonna be 1. How did it? One shouldn't matter too much. And it's orange. I wanted to make it yellow, so I need to increase this. There we go, it's kind of yellowish. See, and now I can really change these, like, you know, from command line interface. And what this is doing is just, you know, generating the same WebSocket messages I was showing earlier. But it's kind of sort of nicer interface to experiment with. And it's kind of fun, like, editing more like this. It can be a little tedious, but it is also fun. It's kind of very, like, command line style. So yeah, you can also, like, you know, delete things. So I can be unclear component that's correctly selected. So what is the root? So let's, don't know. Well, you could try deleting that, but it's not gonna let you do that. Let's select the sphere again, and now I can do remove slot, and it's gone. So there's a few more commands to this, but like, also hopefully this kind of shows you, you know, some of the stuff you can do. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like, you know, that's kind of the core of the thing. This is like a sort of a building block for building lots of things on this, because you can use this, you know, kind of like as is, but like the main idea is this is gonna be a foundational block for lots of other projects, like doing, for example, SDKs, where the Unity SDK will use this, you know, to build out the scene in Resonite, and it can actually run within the Unity editor, sending the data over to Resonite. And by making this open source, by making this accessible to everyone, you can, you know, build your own integrations. Like whatever engine you want to run, whatever tool you want to run, you can, in most cases, you'll be able to use WebSocket and JSON and just build whatever you want and modify, you know, the world and build the world from there. So this can be lots of like really cool applications. It's one of those things I kind of like wanted to do for a while. There's also like a bunch of like requirements, like with people, you know, been asking for like Unity SDK. There's like some businesses which need to build tools. But I also just wanted to like start a project that sort of empowers, you know, you, like everyone in the community, to build tools, because we've seen projects, you know, like people building external tools for working with ProtoFlux. And this should hopefully simplify, you know, part of the process, actually, you know, getting the data in. And we want to make those projects to be easier to do and sort of like, you know, have like a shared like foundation to do them, and sort of create like, you know, this kind of ecosystem of like tooling and give everyone in the community a lot more power and just, you know, kind of have like fun with it, because this has been like one of the projects where I've been kind of having fun, you know, doing this command line interface, because it's relatively simple. But it's also very powerful, and I really like those kinds of projects where it's both simple but also powerful. And it's pretty much, you know, this pretty much like ticks those boxes. So give the repository a check. This is gonna be out soon. There's gonna be still more things coming to it. Like this is not quite complete. There is a roadmap. So like, for example, we're gonna add support for data types. Some of these might even be added before this gets released, like arrays, for example, dictionary sync vars. There's also importantly, this is going to be very important for SDKs. There's going to be API for generating and importing assets. So for example, say bring this texture and brings this motion, audio, animation. So if you, for example, we're making the Unity SDK, that will be able to push those assets in through this. And there's also going to be type reflection. So you can, for example, ask it like, whatever version of Resonite is running, what are the currently supported components? What's their structure? So you can, for example, use it to generate bindings or do like, dynamical component like browsing, hinting and stuff like that. It's probably going to be like some methods for type validation because that follows like C# and maybe hard to implement. So you can just ask the API to validate types for you and some other kind of nice things. So give this a read. Look at the protocol itself. We might like tweak how some things are, if there's like ways to like make things make more sense, make issues. If you like, if you feel like some suggestions, because we don't want to have this labeled too long, but also we want to get, some feedback and some ideas. So thank you very much for watching. I hope like, this is gonna be a lot of fun, messing with this. It should be released very soon, probably tomorrow. And I can't wait, all the cool stuff like you guys will make with it. And if you do make something with it, please share because we'll let me go back to the page. We have like this section and there's like no projects yet, so we want to add some links. We probably also might move it like higher up. So if you make some cool project with it, library, or you make integrations, say like in different languages, please share them. We'll put them and share them with the rest of the community. So every contribution makes everyone more powerful and opens up more workflows and cool possibilities. So thanks for watching and like soon making silly stuff with this. Wow.